It is quite the interesting weekend coming up. I guess we're going to warm up just to get cold here in beautiful Albuquerque. Um, wasn't really fond of that rain that came in, a little bit of snow, but hey, I guess winter, it's due. Um, One of the things that it made me really sit and think about is how we view things, how we assess things that are happening in our life. And I started laughing. I've had this opportunity to think about this all through the week because starting with a friend on Monday, we had coffee and talking about judgment and how we look at judgment and how we use it. I also had a conversation with Annette on Wednesday about how we can use it for our spiritual growth. And one of the things that came through quite powerful was that we're not using it for our growth. We're using it to whip ourselves into shape. We're using it to beat ourselves up. So I want to bring in Johari's window. In Johari's window, it's a four-paned window. And it was these two psychiatrists that came up with this concept. And I really think this is a good concept because it really helps us look inside without being threatened. The first window is how everybody sees you. It's, you go to the grocery store and you go to the gas station and they're seeing the same you that your family does. You've got a blue shirt on, you've just got a haircut. Maybe you didn't put makeup on that day, or maybe you look really tired because a lot of events have happened. You're outside doing things. Whatever it is, it's just the very topical of us. And using that, we also have a way of assessing who people are through that view. We assess them to be, if you saw me with, yard clothes on, holey t-shirt and some cutoffs or yucky yoga pants, you would assume that I had been doing some physical labor because I'm dusty or I might have mud or whatever, my hair up in a bun. And you would think, oh, well, this is what she must have done because that's all predicated on who you are and how you view things. Or it could be something that's on your mind. It also gives a key indication about the color of our skin, our gender identity. I laugh because so many people say, well, I can tell she's a lesbian. Well, how can you tell? Maybe she's bi. Maybe she's not. Maybe she's just comfortable with her girlfriends. We make those assessments and we put that energy out there. One of the things I will tell you, it's a quick story about my son who pierced. He was 18. He was going to pierce something. He couldn't stand it. He was going to get something pierced. So he did. He pierced right here on his ear, from here back to here, and he put barbells through there. And it went through both ears. And he came home and he's like, Mom, what's wrong with you? And because I burst into tears and I said, you don't understand. And he goes, no, I don't. This is my body, my right. I said, absolutely. But people are going to judge you for that. And he says, what do you mean? And I said, they're going to look negatively at you. So when we defy the standards, oftentimes people don't like people who disrupt those standards. They don't like the person who has a big old sleeve tattoo. It's not something they would do. Or maybe they have, those things studs they put in their skull or whatever it is. Okay? But I told him, I said, all that negative energy is going to come at you because that's a painful look. And with that negativity coming at you, it can emotionally make you depressed. It can make you question your self-esteem. Your self-confidence can be lacking because you're going to be dealing with people who are going, and he said, well, defiant, 18-year-old, I don't care. And every time he came in, I could feel this wash of negativity, and I would burst into tears. And he says, Mom, stop it. Well, he says it doesn't matter anyway. The stud had drifted, and so he had to take them out. And he came to me about a month later, and he says, you know, you were right. He said, all these people were so nasty to me, and now that those bars are gone, they react differently. And I said, you know, it's a shame that we have to do this in this world, that we have to feel comfortable with things that don't scare us. And sometimes that's people, the way they look or they choose to dress. We automatically make those assumptions. So what does that mean when we're looking at judgment? We're looking at putting our emotions out on somebody and deciding who they were predicated on our assessments, our life experiences, not who they might be really. But be that as it may, that's what the first window is about. The second window is about close friends and family. That's the window where they know you. And this is a really powerful window. And the reason it's a powerful window is, have you ever heard the same thing repeatedly? You're so critical, you're so this, or you're so that. That's because that's what you're displaying. And you may not feel that way, but that's what they're seeing. Now I'm going to tell you a little story about that. My mother had died. She had pancreatic cancer, and she was supposed to have passed away within a 3-month block, and it was 18 months, and I was her caregiver. It was really tumultuous. It was very emotional, very challenging for me. So after she passed away, I was really grieving a lot. And I was working. I had moved my office. I was just renting a small space for someone. I wanted to downsize. I didn't want to have any more responsibility. I just wanted to shut down for a couple of years and just regroup. And this woman that worked in the back, I loved her to death. She was doing Ho'oponopono on me and doing a lot of clearing work with the grief. I didn't talk a lot about the grief, and of course she didn't share it with anybody that I was in such severe grief. She just, she didn't say hardly a word, and then I had another grief instance happen, and another one, and another one. So I had like 5 grief experiences from my aunt before my mother died through February of 2009. And I was barely able to keep my feet under me. And her office mate said to her, "She's so angry." Well, I was grieving, so I'm sure that to her that energy looked very aggressive, and grief is. But it wasn't something I shared, but she made that assessment because that's that mirror thing. And this is where you can use this second window and people that you're very close to really open you up, to really help you move forward. Because our self-esteem is wrapped up in some of the reactions that we get from people, especially our close friends like my son and my, I can feel it, oh my God. And it's really the point of greatness for us to progress in our spirit, because it's our highest opportunity for understanding. If you have someone, friend or family, lover, that you absolutely trust implicitly to talk to you, and you have to really be willing to listen, that they are able to share with you that really big piece of you that may be hindering you, like you just don't feel like you're able to make friends as easily as you once did, or maybe you're having some struggles with dealing with your children's other parent, either whether they're in the home or not. Having that really loving, supportive, critical honesty can really be beneficial. Now, I will tell you that there are some things, and I use my family a lot because, it's easy for me because it's people I know that I learned their intimate reactions and behaviors, and I could figure these things out for myself. My mother, I used to go with my kids on Saturdays, and we'd go help her on Saturdays. She'd make us lunch, and then when she was tired and she wanted us to go, she would go look at the clock and go, look at the clock. Well, we knew that was our cue to go. Now, did I tell her, Mom, quit clacking? If you want us to go, just say so. I was never going to tell her that because she obviously was not comfortable saying, honey, I'm really tired. Could you guys go home? I've done enough. Instead, she gave us a signal. So we knew what her signal was. And sometimes we pushed the envelope and stayed past where she just was like wired. And she says, you gotta go. I need to lay down. But those are those things that we can share with each other. Maybe we constantly say something that isn't for our best interest, like, I'm tired, or I don't feel like I'm going to get this done. We talk our negative talk in ways that we're afraid, or whatever it is. Having that person that you really sit down and say, where do you think I'm sabotaging myself? What are the signals, whether they be physical signals like sitting here like this, closed off, turning your back to the other person, or looking, a room full of people and turning to look at one so that you shut everybody else off. Those can be signals that can be detrimental to you because you could hear some really great things and shuts you off from being around other people. It becomes off-putting to them. If you can really look at those aspects of you and understand maybe when you do that, how it feels toward other people and you stop doing that, that's when you go, oh, okay, so if I quit and I start embracing that, I can change. And if I change my patterns, maybe instead of attracting the same kind of experience time after time, I'll open to a different experience. For example, if you're trying to go get a job, Lance with his bar in his ear, he's going to get one type of job. It's not going to be the job he wants or one that may have been equal to his intellect because he was extremely intelligent. But it was going to be one that he could wear the bar, which suited an 18-year-old fine, but it really didn't pay a lot of the bills. So we sabotage ourselves, and because when we do that, we become victims, and we become victims to their circumstance. So let's say you don't like something that somebody else does. That mirror thing, going back to the woman who assumed that I was really angry when I was just in such dire grief. And the funny thing was, I took this woman a turtle. I gave her a turtle. I had 2 conversations with her. She raised turtles. She rescued them. I gave her one that had been in my yard. I wanted to make sure he didn't die. She still assumed that I was angry. And that's that mirror thing. That's like what you see in someone else may not be in them, but it is in you, or you wouldn't be linking into it or seeing something in it that you yourself do. So watching those mirrors is not an assessment of somebody else. It's an assessment of you. And we can use that too as our way to grow. But it is equally easy if you can talk to the people who really know you and say, you know what, your communication skills are really challenging. I'm not really clearly understanding. So instead of just blurting things out, why don't you think for a minute, take a breath, and then speak from where you're coming from. And then we won't have any more misunderstandings. That seems to be a real easy thing for us to do for each other, but it's not always well received, and it's often something that we hesitate to do. So we need to find those ways that we quit assuming that judgment that we're talking about, judge not lest you be judged, how the outcome is going to be. You're creating, and your business is to create your future. So instead of seeing it as a rejection of something you might say, you can see the outcome as a real positive bonding experience. Now that brings us to our third window. That third window is where it's everything only you know. So it's your hopes and your fears. It's your goals, your things you thought about that you wouldn't share. It's those dirty deeds, those cringeworthy, where you just go, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't have said that. It's really hard to open this window and feel comfortable with it. I remember when I was doing my clinic, and this woman told me, she said, the scars on my arms are from when I was a coke addict. And I would go to my coke dealer, sell my body to him for 2 weeks, spend 2 weeks high as a kite in his house and picking at myself. And I thought, wow, that's really amazing. She feels comfortable saying that. I thought that was just, most people, that would be their dirty little secret. Well, that's what the third window is. Sorry guys, I forgot my water bottle at home. So that dirty little secret that we come into shames us. Some people delight in those dirty little secrets. They delight in telling people, I don't know, I can't even think of something like, okay, my husband was such an asshole, he raped me and beat me up, and they delight in those things, and they overshare instead of really looking at the responsibility of how they got there. And this is what that third window is all about. It's not that you deserved what he said. No, not by any stretch of the imagination. Anyone who is ever being abused verbally, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, not an option. It's not okay. But to wear it like a banner without trying to find out what it is within you that allows that becomes the problem. And that's what's in that third window, the fear factor. And why we write stories, to keep bringing those dramatic experiences to ourselves. It's really hard. It's our secret self. I told Cheyenne the other day a couple of my secret self things, and she said, Em, I did not think you were even like that. And I said, oh yeah. I was a redhead from the get-go, and I was a fiery kid. She says, well, how many times did you get beat up? And I said, every time, unless I was picking on my sister. I said, got my butt handed to me every time. She says, well, what caused you to do that? I said, honey, I was angry. I was an angry kid. And anger didn't serve me. So when I started realizing I was doing this out of anger, I decided I didn't like the anger, and I decided to change the anger. But that came around with my Saturn return. So for the first 28 years, I had pictures that you'd see me going, no smile, no happy, no. I had my happy times, and I had my friends I hung out with, and we all laughed and talked. But my overall energy was very angry, and there were reasons for it. I'm not saying that there wasn't, but that's where my secret self was. And it wasn't just angry at my family and my family circumstance. I grew up with a family who put the word fun in dysfunction. It was how I allowed it to interact and play out in my life. So that's where you start working. You have to open the first two. You have to kind of go out in the world and say, okay, well, here I'm going out. I'm dressed like this. What are the reactions that I'm getting? I used to tell women all the time, it doesn't matter what clothes you wear as long as you feel like you have your pretty panties on. Men, this is why they ask them to wear a collared shirt into restaurants or a tie into restaurants, because it changes how their behavior is. So you go into a bar with a t-shirt, you don't care. You're not standing straight. And that was the premise of, you have to have a collared shirt if you walk in this bar, because they comported themselves with a little higher degree of um, togetherness, losing the anger, that they felt better. So when we feel better, people respond to us better. This, and again, in the second window, it's understanding that that's the dynamic. So getting that second window open is invaluable to getting to that third window to say, what do I really feel? What is it that I'm really trying to do here? Now, I can tell you that going through that, we go into the fourth window. And the fourth window is our potentials. So let's say you have a life of a lot of stress. That gives you the potential to develop illness. That family dynamic, the DNA strands. But it also can trigger some amazing spiritual gifts. It can also trigger some, aging process. A lot of people go, oh, that woman had it so rough. Look at how she's aged. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what it is, but they think that's what it is because that's what happens in their potential. But it doesn't happen in everybody's. So we have to stay away from that concept that we know way more about what is happening and just let the potentials unfold. So how powerful would it be if you were actually able to see your strengths and your weaknesses? And you were able to see that maybe one of your weaknesses is that you don't have a strong body. So you're not going to be able to lift and carry. And if you can admit that, you can find ways to work around it that don't challenge you. And that also means that you find ways that you can move the box, or maybe you draw a partner in to your world, a friend, family member that can help you move it, or you pay the money to have the movers move it. It's somehow, some way. But acknowledging that weakness, that it's there, saves you throwing your back out, herniating a disc, blowing your psoas so you begin to have sciatica, diabetes, cancer. All of these are potentials that we have. But we also have other really great potentials. Maybe you're an artist. I know that in this world, in metaphysics, people think that the greatest healer or the greatest psychic or the greatest medium is your greatest metaphysician. They have the highest degree of knowledge because they have developed their gifts. And that's not always true. That doesn't mean that they have a great foundation of metaphysics. That means that they have a high degree of knowledge in their field of expertise. Now, an artist, I was just talking to someone who's a fantastic artist yesterday, and I said, what people don't realize when you're doing art, you're walking between the worlds. You're seeing the world of possibility. You're not just drawing from your mind, but you're pulling in all the potentials, all the possibilities, possibly from other dimensions. He does some amazing work with dragons and creatures of the fairy world, of the realm of Pan and Lilith. And why couldn't he be transversing through that? But he never thought of it that way. He just knew that that's where he was very gifted and connected to. And he does some amazing art on many other levels, but that's his forte. How about a writer? Some writers, like Stephen King, tells you right out, I get these from my nightmares. Okay, I get it. But there are other writers that write their memoirs or their bibliography or their autobiography and never could write a book of fiction. They had to write about something that really pertained to them. And that's their gift and their potential, but that doesn't mean they can't. Like the guy who wrote The Waltons was amazing. I met him. He did a fundraiser when I was working with the American Diabetes Association, and he gave us a gift for our silent auction for a picture and a manuscript from the Waltons, autographed. And he said that when he writes from two parts. What he experienced and what he saw other people experience. And he came to his life through his writings. It helped him grow spiritually through his writings. So maybe writing a book, you don't have to be a fantastic author. You don't even have to get it published. But maybe writing is a way to recognize your potentials or to come to higher levels of awareness and understanding that supersede your psychic or healing gifts. The other aspect of it is that we also have to look at the business person. A business person has to be multi-talented. They have to be able to sense what their person that they're getting ready to sell, they have to be able to use their psychic senses. So they develop it to some degree, but they're not necessarily reading. Having the understanding of how that works helps him stay in his integrity. So instead of being the businessman that senses it and then goes in for the kill and just, rapes and pillages through his sales process, having that foundation, he understands he has to be able to stand by what he sells and that being his integrity, so that he's not some shyster con artist. Con artist is a businessman. So we have to look into that fourth window to really see what it is that we're working at doing. If we can look into our potentials and we develop those foundations and we develop that, we start losing the drama. We are no longer ashamed of what we did when we were in our hopes and fears in our third window. Don't have those experiences. As you heal, as you go through the four windows, and you start healing some of those aspects found in the second window of just the silly things like, hey, maybe you know somebody who would be fantastic. They can't get their business off the ground because they can't speak to who they are. They don't have a lot of self-esteem. So getting together with somebody who is a writer, maybe the friend goes, hey, let me list your attributes, and you take it to somebody who can write your ad copy so that they can give you that. Would help build that person's self-esteem so they maybe not react so negatively every time they didn't lose a sale. They're able to better accept it. So it leaves that life more on an even keel, and it loses that drama. How about relationships? How many times do you know somebody that when they break up in their relationship, it's that so-and-so's a dirty so-and-so, that so-and-so is this. They're not. They gave us information and they helped us heal. We just didn't really check in with that. We didn't recognize what a gift that they may have been and brought to us. So doing our work in that arena really helps us. And that drama can drop. And if you're dropping the drama from one aspect of your world, it'll roll over. So maybe when you go home for the holidays, you're not looking at that person in the family that you're going, oh my God, I just can't deal with my cousin so-and-so. Well, I laugh because, tell you a little secret, there's always somebody in the room that nobody can stand. And it cracks me up because I look at it in comparison when there's somebody around that everybody's kind of reacting negatively. I'm like, that doesn't have the same impact for me because my sisters were very much like my governing tool of how nasty can get. And I had a sister who get really manipulative and really nasty and was really horrible. So I look at everybody else, I'm like, who cares? Because I know how much worse it could possibly get. So we tend to have those judgments predicated on our own life experiences, and we really need to look at that. Those are our tools to look at what it is that we can change in us to have a different dynamic with someone else. And it'll change your self-esteem as well. And healing those things, you open the windows and you look at your hopes and fears. Is it really a fear of yours to be a success? Because a lot of people have a fear of success because they might have to do something about it. So how hard would it be for you to accept success in a positive light? How bad would it be we all hope that we are going to have enough money to retire and we're going to have that really lovely life, and somebody dies or somebody moves or somebody breaks in our home and destroys the security that we had in the house because they robbed us. Doesn't mean all drama goes away. It means looking at what it is that you truly fear and validating if that fear is really worthy of fear. So in other words, my daughter used to go to sleep and the rose bush would brush against the wall and she went to sleep. And that made her feel safe. And when she moved, when she got married and she moved, there was nothing to lull her to sleep per se. And so she would wake up occasionally throughout the night and did I hear something? Did I hear something? It was too quiet for her. So understanding that those are things that we're conditioned to and that bring us safety makes us understand what it is that maybe challenges our safety. And that could be a neighbor that moved in and he's a Hell's Angel and has his buddies over all the time, and that may make some people feel uneasy. Somebody asked me, why don't you ever think about, being broken into? And I said, God, do I not have enough to worry about in my life? I have to worry about somebody coming into my house. So I'm not going to attract that because it's not something that I fear. And so I have to look at why I fear that. If somebody who was from the Hells Angels that moved in, I'd be going, I'm safe because nobody's going to mess around in the neighborhood with him here. It's just like having a cop car in the neighborhood. I'm not saying that there isn't stuff that can happen, but that's my viewpoint of it. So we can always look at doing those things and bringing our potential to the highest and best interest by facing our fears. And then we can really look at what we're good at. So what if we're over here and we're thinking we're not really good at public speaking? Well, I took a class through Toastmasters and I learned how not to go, and there's times that I still do. Everybody's human. But I've learned to fill the space in beforehand by being prepared for my talks instead of really going out there and trying to wing it. If I don't know the information, there's going to be a lot of uhs. And so my public speaking fear has gone away. I can tell you when I was in high school, I had to give a 5 to 15 minute report and had really thick bottle glasses. And I was in Phoenix, so it was hot. And air conditioning was not always an option. And I was sweating trying to give this. And you're not supposed to touch your hands, and I kept having to do this. Because the worst thing would have been for the glasses to hit the podium where I was trying to give my talk. That would have been a lot more destructive than pushing my glasses back. So, understanding what your trade outs are. I can do this, and this will help me do that. Using those tools of judgment brings us into a higher power and control of judging. Judging another person, well, that's just kind of silly, and that leads to hate and anger and gossip and negativity, and it brings the whole space down. And nobody needs that. And we're all guilty of it. Don't get me wrong, we're all guilty of it because when we feel bad, we tend to look at everything kind of negatively. So if you look at, let's take your mind and say, okay, this pandemic, I don't know about the rest of you guys, I'm exhausted. I am so exhausted. It's a challenge because I'm like, do I go and turn the lights on at the center? Will people come down and get a reading? Will they get a healing? Is everybody so afraid to walk out the door that they can't come in and have a cup of tea with us? Yeah, it's kind of been like that. But what if they need us? So we need to open. So it's exhausting trying to figure out through my mind, trying to get out the door and make it happen for other people, or do I just get out the door and try to hold on and breathe through my next moment? If you're looking at your body, when you start healing those aspects in those first three windows, you get to the potentials of what the damage can happen to your body. So, maybe you start feeling like you can go out and exercise a little more. Maybe you feel like you can eat a little better. Maybe you're not quite as critical on yourself, and so anxiety doesn't come up, so you're not eating cookies. Or maybe you're not worried about it, so the risk of cancer and diabetes starts to fade because you've healed some of these fears that you have. And it's hard. Don't get me wrong, it's really hard. Once we do that, our spirit starts to heal because you're going to start drawing to some of the people that have done their own work. Doesn't mean that they um, are going to be around forever. It means that you'll draw to the people who resonate to the same levels that you are. And if you want to make those levels higher, then you keep growing spiritually. You keep building those foundations. You keep reassessing who you are. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. I don't care if there is somebody that is going to be at a Christmas party this year, and somebody that you don't like, your cousin, maybe it was your best friend, and she's coming with your ex-husband or your ex-wife, whatever it is. Looking at that and having that fear sets that aggression up in you. Instead, heal it and say, you know what? If they're better off with that person, love you. Bye. Have a good life with that. I can see my ex-husband and his third wife, and I've never felt threatened. I've never felt angry about it. I was fine with it because I'd healed that part of me that had that relationship issue, and that's one of the things that we have to look at. Now I'm going to tell you there is an aspect of you that I really want all of you, and this is your homework for this week. TBIs happen if you've had a concussion. Maybe you don't sleep as well. You have to look at the physical aspects and start charting what could be your hindrances. So I worked a lot for many years with traumatic brain injury patients, clients. And what I noticed is that some people couldn't handle patterns. So they couldn't handle plaid shirts or lots of fluff around the shirt and frills. They just needed solid colors. Some people couldn't hardly handle certain colors. Certain colors gave them headaches. Certain colors made them tired. Light is another factor. Sound is another factor. So I want you to start checking. We're going to talk about how to work with our senses next week. But check how your senses are acting. So I want you to start making a little diary about how your senses are working, what stimulates you. Like some music makes me want to dance. Other music makes me want to read a book. Other music makes me want to just sit and meditate in the sunshine. And other music makes me want to throw daggers at someone. And I understand which beats will do which. And so knowing that, it's a real good thing for me because then I can expect the personality to kind of kick into gear into certain things. I have 2 brain injuries. I will tell you, this is not something I'm not willing to say. I think a lot of people have brain injuries that don't even realize it. I got my first one, microgoosey, dropped me when I was 15. I hit this side of my head, and I hit a sprinkler right here, and it dislocated C1 and C2, and I was another 1/8 of an inch off from severing it. So for a lot of years, because the right side of your brain is your emotions, I didn't have the emotions that other people do. I would go to a funeral and laugh, and I would go to a wedding and be teared up in grief. And it was because the signals weren't working correctly because that brain injury. So I've since done a lot of work to bring that through. I've done a lot of cranial sacral work. I've done a lot of work on myself to bring that back into balance because I recognized it. And so understanding that it could be something as simple as having opened the door and getting clipped here, a car accident, the airbag and throwing you back against and hitting here. There are different ways of getting a brain injury. Sports is another way. I had a woman hit me on this side of the head yet again. It's still tender. This was 10 years ago with a barbell at the gym. She was supposed in the process of racking her barbells, and I stepped forward, and she decided to do one more fly, and she clocked me. And it's like, you were racking your bars. What the hell? Anyway, those things have, headaches from being on the computer too much. Those things are going to change your personality. They're going to change your emotions. So for the next week, really track those, because next week we're going to talk about getting back into our senses, our 5 senses, because understanding that and building that block and building that power with them will help us recognize these windows a little easier, and it will also help us with a clear understanding of being present in the moment. Remember, your teachers used to go, pay attention, pay attention. Now everybody's going, be mindful. It's paying attention, but if you have a headache, you can't pay attention. If you're getting overstimulated by things, you can't pay attention. So check in with your food, check in and write your emotions after food consumption. What happens to you an hour or two later? Are you still hungry? Are you fussy? Whatever. These are the things that can really help make a difference and bring you into a more grounded state. That will also help you as you ground, build your connection to spirit a lot more deeper, a lot more fully, and your gifts come through a lot more. So for now, that's your homework, and I hope you enjoyed today's talk. I look forward to seeing each and every one of you when the time permits. Don't forget, you can sign up for Virtual Spirit Circle tomorrow from 1 to about 2:30. Virtual Psychic Fair, if you want to get a reading. There's Johanna for astrology. There is Alexa for your core issues. There's Annette. She does great psychic readings. And there is Donna, who is doing her beautiful work, her mediumship and whatever, their cards and everything else. And then we have our regular walk in the door psychic fair. We did get our occupancy load for this year for the pandemic. So we look forward to seeing all of you. You have a wonderful weekend. Don't forget, Brother Francis also has this meditation on Saturday starting at 11:30. It will be here in the center. Please contact me so I can make sure I have enough seats set up and I can make sure that we're all socially distanced. My heart to all yours. Mwah! I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you sometime this weekend. Bye now.